The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.
It was almost impossible to find a puppy or a kitten to adopt at one point during this COVID crisis because everyone wanted one. Now, with glimmers of normal creeping back in, how are all those pandemic pets and their people doing? We'll check in on that tonight. And then our Ontario Hubs explain how something called pod vaccine sites could help speed up vaccinations in the province. And from a look back at education this year to some frank words from child welfare advocate Cindy Blackstock, we've got the Agenda's Week in Review. I'm Nam Kiwanuka. It's Friday, July 2nd, and that's next on the agenda. A recent poll from Abacus Data found that some 900,000 Canadians, or 3% of the population, adopted a pet during the pandemic. And that means there are a lot more people and animals about to make big transitions when normal activities start being a part of our lives again, including long stretches of time away from home. How will they and we manage? Let's ask. In Barrhaven, just south of the nation's capital, Sarah Horrocks, a public servant and pet owner. In Uxbridge, Ontario, Phil Nichols, registered veterinarian technician and chief operation officer for the Toronto Humane Society. And in Woodbridge, Ontario, Monica Suds, vice president of Action Volunteers for Animals. Hi to you all.
Hello.
Morning.
Hello.
I am so excited we're talking about this because I was one of those, our family was one of those families that adopted a puppy during the pandemic. Phil, I wanted to start with you. Have adoptions increased at the Toronto Humane Society during the pandemic?
Adoption interest has certainly increased throughout the pandemic, but the total number of adoptions hasn't increased for us since the pandemic hit. But that's really been a result of a lot of intake diversion activities and work to keep pets with their families. So there hasn't been as many animals in the shelter looking for adoption.
And Monica, has Action Volunteers for Animals seen an increase in rescues?
We have seen an actual increase in adoptions as well. Last year, we actually adopted the most we've ever adopted at about 2021 cats were adopted.
And Sarah, you adopted some pets during the past year. How come?
I did. So we moved into a different home that allowed pets. And so my children really wanted to have cats and dogs back in our lives. So we lost our pets a few years ago. They were just old and we had to have them put down. So we adopted 2 sibling kittens from the Ottawa Kitten Rescue. And then I adopted a puppy I got her from Kijiji. And then I just recently got a new dog who was rehomed to me.
It sounds like you have a very busy household. It took us about a year to find our puppy. What was the process like for you? Was it hard?
It was actually not hard for me because a colleague found the puppy for me on Kijiji, but she did an extensive, exhaustive search, and we wound up having to drive almost all the way to Sudbury, so 7.5 hours north one way in order to get Shuby.
Phil, I don't know how many hours I spent on different rescues, looking at the Toronto Humane Society, trying to find our puppy. Besides the cute videos and, the love that they give you, what are some of the benefits that animals have on our health?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think the benefits are so much greater than what a lot of people think of. And there's been work done by the Human Animal Bond Research Institute recently, which is gaining a fair bit of notoriety, that shows all of the positive health benefits that bringing a pet into your life can have, anywhere from lowering blood pressure, helping children with autism cope better, help them get more vocal and interactive. If pets are in the household as children are growing up, it helps boost their immune response and build their tolerance against other allergies, lowering symptoms of emotional duress in people as well. So I think that the benefits of having a pet and welcoming one into your family are so immeasurable. And I think that the key one that everyone can agree on is that human animal bond, and it's the love and the passion that you can share with them.
It seems like for us anyway, we moved into a new neighborhood during the pandemic and with physical distancing measures in place. I don't know about you all, but I've found myself to be very awkward around people now. I don't know where to stand. I'm just kind of like this. But with our puppy, it's opened up an opportunity for us to meet our neighbors and to chat. We've also been seeing a lot of headlines that mention that a lot of people who adopted their pets during the pandemic are now surrendering them to animal shelters. Phil, is that the case?
It's not the case. And we've seen a lot of headlines on that. I mean, certainly there's people that are still needing to surrender or looking to surrender for different reasons, but all of the data across Canada and across North America completely refute that message that animals are being returned to shelters in mass droves. And in fact, our average return rates and the return rates that we're seeing across Canada and across the US are much lower than what they were pre-pandemic. So I think there's been a lot of positive movement that's happened over the last year and a half on the animal welfare front.
That's surprising to me. Monica, I see you nodding your head.
Yes. We have also not seen any significant increase in returns. In fact, they're down from 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we had about 20 more returns than we have over the last 2 years. So people are keeping their pets.
And Sarah, for you, have you considered surrendering your pets?
So I had to work quite a bit with Shuby. She had some difficulties in her behavior, and we consulted with a number of people because rehoming was a real possibility if she was going to be aggressive, and thankfully we were able to work her through that. But that is the reason why I have Parker today, is he was rehomed from another family who couldn't deal with his behaviors. He was biting, there was a young child in the family, and it just wasn't working out. So because I had that experience recently with Shuby, we were able to work with Parker in the same way, and thankfully it's been going well. We've had him for about a month right now.
It's like I mentioned before, it sounds like you have a lot on your plate. I love that name, Shuby, by the way. What drives you to have another pet, have a pet that's been rehomed when you already have so much responsibility?
Well, so I have 4 children. In addition to having 4 pets, I have 4 children, 3 of whom live at home with me. The youngest is 17. So I have a lot of help, which has been great. Adding Parker to the mix with Shuby allows us to have them together. So when you talk about separation anxiety and maybe the return back to work, well, we have a lot of people in this house who can pitch in and help, but also the 2 puppies have their crates kind of end to end, a little bit separated, but they take comfort in knowing that the other one is there.
Our puppy was left alone for the first time this week, and we came home. I have a plant on top of her crate. We came home, and that plant was no longer on top of the crate. That plant was on the ground. She did not like being left alone, and I think it was maybe an hour or 2. But I want to read you something journalist S.E. Smith wrote in the Washington Post about pet surrender. They write, "The shame around surrendering pets makes people feel like failures for something that may already be extremely traumatic, whether it involves tearing a young child away from a beloved pet or separating someone from a companion of a decade or more. Treating it with such stigma can encourage people to abandon pets, hastily rehome them, or remain in dangerous situations because they don't want to leave their animals." Monica, when we think about stigma, what role does stigma play when people consider abandoning their pets?
Well, I think it's a real thing. I think that people sometimes have anxiety around having to rehome their pets. I would rather have a cat. We primarily deal with cats returned to us rather than something happen. I know that sometimes some organizations, some shelters, rescues will ask for a surrender fee. Some people feel that they can't afford the surrender fee, so then they choose other options, including rehoming pets on Kijiji, which we would never support. You don't really know, and I think people are never able to accurately screen people on Kijiji, and you really don't know what the outcome of that would be. So I would hope that we can support, I think most shelters and rescues try to support pet owners so that there isn't that shame, and take those pets back so that we can rehome them successfully.
And Phil, I think a lot of people can figure out how to adopt a pet, but I don't know if a lot of people know how to maybe give them up. And I've never actually thought about stigma and the role that it plays around people making those kind of decisions, hard decisions. So, in your view, what role does stigma play when people do have to abandon their pets?
Yeah, I think stigma plays a huge role in it, and I think it highlights an issue that, as an industry, we've kind of been blind or allowed to continue throughout the last couple decades. And when we're looking at stigma, we're talking about pet abandonment, and I think even within that language, we can see a bit of stigma being applied, because it's not always just that they're being abandoned. People in general are really trying to do the right thing, and they're trying to do what's best for the pet and their family, and they don't want the animal to suffer. And that's an area where the animal welfare industry has been going through a big shift. And I think you'll start to see a lot of different rescue agencies and groups starting to figure out, what are we doing wrong that we're not supporting the community well enough, that is leading people to need to give up their pets, or need to make that decision to shatter that human animal bond, or break that relationship that may exist between the pet and their family, and in the different family members. And I think that's where we have a lot of room to grow and to improve. The comments that we were talking about, and separation anxiety, and how are the animals going to cope, and if you're away for the first time, and how that's all impacting the animal. And I think that just highlights an area of animal welfare and care and support where a lot of work needs to be done to help improve and ensure that those supports and that resource and that information and the correct knowledge is available to the community and to the individuals that are trying to do the right thing and really want to improve that relationship, and make sure that the animal and the family, and they just work better together and well together. And there's a lot of misinformation out of there, so cutting through a little bit of that clutter is very much needed right now.
And Sarah, I think when we were looking for our puppy, we really wanted to adopt, because we keep hearing the messaging, adopt, don't shop. You said that you got your puppy on Kijiji. Did you wrestle with that decision?
Yes, I did. We adopted our kittens through Ottawa Kitten Rescue, and I really looked at all of the rescues that I could find in the area for puppies. But at the same time, as I mentioned, my colleague was looking on Kijiji, and everything just kind of fell into place. So I did struggle with that quite a bit, because in the past I had adopted pets from humane societies and Nova Scotia SPCA when we lived in Nova Scotia. But it just wasn't available to me at this time, and we really wanted a dog so badly, and we were actually very happy how it turned out.
And Monica, are there other ways for people who might find themselves in a situation where they no longer can take care of their loved pet? Is there another way for them to avoid surrender as an option?
Absolutely. I think that there are many shelters and rescues, and we do it for sure. We try to sometimes contact the owner and work through some of those issues if there are issues that can be resolved. Sometimes you have, some issues that really don't ultimately mean that the cat has to be surrendered. So we will try to support them through that. We'll have ongoing conversations with them, send them reading material if they need that. Not everybody wants to surrender their animal, but I think that sometimes they need support to know that they don't need to do that. Sometimes people are faced with financial issues. Sometimes there's support around getting that. So if we can support them and maintain that animal in the home, then that's probably the best outcome for everyone.
Phil, I want to ask you that same question. Are there other ways to avoid separation, to avoid surrender as an option?
Absolutely. And I think highlighting that challenge has been a huge key part of organizationally what Toronto Humane Society has been working to overcome. And in the last 12 months, similar to programs that Monica was just alluding to, Toronto Humane Society released and launched a program that we call our Pet Parent Support Network, which is available for access on our website. And the primary focus of all of that is to connect individuals that are experiencing some kind of challenge or issue, and they're looking for support. And they're not quite sure, do I need to go to this place? Where do I find information? Where do I find support? And that's where our group of volunteers is working with a lot of resources and documents and information to help guide people towards the best solution for them, and sometimes that may be that surrender may be in the best interest of that pet and that family at that time, but there are so many different alternatives and options, and trying to figure all that out as an individual is challenging. And how do you know what you're seeing on Google is correct? And that's one of the main reasons we wanted to launch this program, so that we can ensure people are getting the right information that's credible. It's been screened by the experts, whether that's our veterinarians, our behaviorists, our certified trainers, to make sure that people are getting the right information when they need it to avoid surrender at all possible costs. And it is really a big key piece of where our organization is going, and I think where you're going to see the industry go as well.
I think one of the things that I wasn't really aware of was pet insurance, and trying to find those little details that you need. Our girl needs to be spayed in a few months, and trying to figure out how much. It's actually very costly. Sarah, for you, what do you think has been the most important lesson that you have learned during this experience, and one that you'd like to share with people who might be considering doing what you're doing?
Well, first of all, it takes a lot of effort and training. And the training primarily was for me because a dog knows how to be a really good dog, but you have to want to be a really good owner and learn about each dog and their personality and work with that. And so it takes time and effort, but it is so worth it. And one of the best things we have found that you mentioned was the community that you get to know on another level because of the pets. So we've gotten to know our neighbors. We've gotten to know people at the dog park. We've gotten to know, I don't know the majority of the people's names, but I can tell you all of their pets' names. And it's just been a wonderful way for us to not only connect with our community, but also for our mental health and our physical health, getting out every day, walking the trails. It's just been wonderful.
And Monica, what would you like for people to know if they are considering taking on adoption?
Well, I think that they need to always consider which pet is right for them. You can adopt a cat, but there are cats with different personalities, and people have different personalities. So I think it's about finding the right fit. If you find that this cat is not a good fit, then it's about finding which cat will be a good fit for you. It's not about giving up after that first try. So we have people that fill out applications, and they might visually see a cat because of pandemic where we've not been in stores, but they might see a photo of a cat, and we provide bios, and they might think it's a good fit. So what we would suggest to them is, this cat might not be the best fit for you given your level of experience, etc., but we would suggest another cat or another animal for them. That might be a better fit, because I always kind of say, if the owner is happy, then the cat is happy, and they're going to be committed to taking the best care of that cat.
And Phil, I'm going to use a word that I swear I won't use after the pandemic, is the word pivot. We've been hearing a lot of things have had to change for your profession. When we go to the vet, we now stay outside, and then someone comes out and brings our puppy inside. What's it been like for you in your profession during this past year and a half with all this demand?
Yeah, I think the industry has just seen such a big pivot and shift over that period of time, and through the pandemic. It's caused a lot of direct frontline service providers to try to adjust their protocols and their systems to work in a digital and a virtual environment, and that's really done. It's done a lot of good, I think, for service delivery and removal of barriers to access of care, especially individuals who are burdened by geographic challenges and limitations and that sort of thing, so that they can have that virtual teletime with a doctor or an RVT. But it's also equally put a lot of pressure on on the industry and on the system, and the work and the adjustments have caused a lot of stress and burnout within the team. And I think it's highlighting a weakness within the industry that has been growing for the last little while. And
What's that weakness?
There's a national shortage of veterinarians and veterinary professional support staff across Canada, and with the growing number of animals being welcomed into homes and becoming part of family members, many more people are looking to build and establish a veterinary client-patient relationship, and there's just a lot of barriers standing in the way of access there. There's cost, but there's also the limitations on staff and availability of veterinarians. And based on internal reports that Toronto Humane Society's done, and we've been looking at this for quite some time over the last little while, our estimates put roughly anywhere between 40 to 50% of domestic pet cats and dogs across Canada don't have a current ongoing relationship with a veterinarian, and that's really concerning for us. And if we can't collectively get together and start addressing those challenges and those issues, animal suffering is something we're going to see, and that's people's capacity to, not because they're being negligent, but because they can't actually find anywhere to access the resources or the support and the care that they need for a number of reasons. And that's going to be a big push and a focus for our organization as we go forward, for sure.
Why is that important for all of us to consider? Because I think if we were talking about doctors for people, it might be seen as more of an urgent issue, but why is it an important issue for us to consider when it comes to our pets?
Healthcare and access to healthcare is a huge issue. And I think you mentioned earlier the pet insurance, right? And it's something not everybody thinks about. And you can look back, 10 years ago, putting some money away every month instead of paying into an insurance plan may have covered you for an emergency visit, but it's not going to cut it anymore. The average, an emergency bill can run you anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. And people aren't expecting or anticipating that when they go up. And that's what causes a lot of people to need to make decisions. Can I afford to provide this care? Can I afford to save my pet? And that is a awful decision to need to make. And it's one that we see owners struggling and burdened and challenged with. And it's not something that the industry should allow. And I think animal welfare as a whole, or stakeholders, we need to work on solutions to help overcome that. I think pet insurance is an amazing tool to help overcome that. That's why it's there. In Canada, I think it's really important that we have that conversation, because we have universal access to healthcare. Our pets don't. And ensuring that we work to overcome that is a big challenge that's going to take a lot of focus and time and energy and effort.
Do you recommend that people get pet insurance?
I absolutely recommend that individuals get pet insurance. Even if it's just an emergency plan, you don't need to get the all-encompassing, it's going to take care of your annual visits and that sort of thing. But emergency health insurance is absolutely essential. And we recommend every single pet owner get in on the plan. And if you can get them when they're young, and as you work through, your premiums can be a little bit cheaper, and it's going to go a long way. And I've certainly been on the other end of, in the past, needing to go to the emergency room. My wife's dog, before we were married, he wound up with his stomach twisted, and he needed emergency surgery. And his bill was I think around $7,000 plus follow-up care. And unless you have, a bank account with money where you're comfortable just sitting with $10,000 or $12,000 there for your pet to cover those unexpected accidents or emergencies, you're going to have a hard time. And I don't think anybody that has a member of their family wants to be in a position where they're making a decision where they need to say goodbye to a loved one because they don't have enough money to provide that care. And in my past, I've been working as a registered veterinary technician or in the field for over a decade now. And I've had to sit in rooms with families as they're making that challenging decision, and that it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for the staff. It's heartbreaking for the families. And we need to communicate and get the information out there about what is needed to support solutions that don't result in that decision needing to be made for that reason.
Sarah, I saw you nodding.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the fence about pet insurance, and I haven't made the decision yet, but I think after this conversation, I will be researching the pet insurance for my 4.
We only have a few minutes left, but Sarah, when you go back to work, do you have plans on how your pets are going to be cared for?
Well, I'm lucky enough at this point that I'm not considered essential, so I won't be going back to work for the foreseeable future. When I do go back to work, I expect it won't be for another couple of years, actually. And at that point, the animals should be good enough to stay in their crates, and I will make arrangements to have somebody come during the day. We belong to a fenced park where they offer somebody to come in, pick up your pet, and take them for walks. And so I'd be doing something like that.
And Monica, I'll give you the last minute. As the pandemic starts to wind down and people are returning to work, to what extent do you worry about them having separation anxiety? I know cats are very independent.
Cats are pretty good. I think I have some cats of my own. I have some cats of my own for sure. And they spend a lot more time with me when I'm working from home, that's for sure. But I think that, especially cats, that's why I have 2 dogs as well, but when they die, and they're 16, when they die, I'm not going to be getting any more dogs because I just think that they're more work than my lifestyle allows. So I have several cats, and I think that they're going to adjust just fine. And I think that's the benefit for me. And for my cats, they have a litter box accessible for them at all times. And that's why I also support adoption of multiple pets, like multiple cats, so that when you're home, that's one thing. But when you go back to work, they have each other to play with and spend time with.
Thank you all for so much. I could talk to you about this for another 30 minutes. We really do appreciate your insights this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Getting as many people vaccinated as possible, as quickly as possible, is the best bet for curbing this pandemic. Justin Chandler covers the Niagara region for Ontario Hubs, and he's got a story this week about an innovative way to administer those jabs much more quickly than usual. He's in Hamilton and joins us now to explain. Hey, Justin.
Hey there.
All right, so we are going to be talking about hockey hubs. Has nothing to do with the ongoing NHL playoffs. Just want to make sure we get that out of the way. We have an illustration I want to pull up. Can you tell us what we are looking at and what exactly is this hockey hub model?
Right. This is a diagram that Grey Bruce's public health unit put together. And what it's showing here is a standard size hockey arena, the type that you would see in many communities across Ontario. And what it's showing is how you can set up a big vaccination clinic inside one of these. And so this model, called the hockey hub model, that's because it's often set up in arenas like this, and it's designed to work well in them, given that's a common space. And so what you're seeing there is a setup where instead of people going to vaccinators, in a situation where maybe you come into a clinic, you sit, you wait in a room, you go to where you can get your shot, you go to another spot. This is a situation where people are coming in, they're sitting down in those big lines that you saw, and vaccinators are coming to them. So they're in these little pods. There's a person with their jabs on a cart. They've got another person with them who's doing data entry, making sure that they've documented your consent for the vaccine, and they're just going around in rings like that. And the idea is that it's a lot faster than the traditional model.
How did this idea come about?
So Dr. Ian Era, who's the medical officer of health for Grey Bruce, said that it's something that he's been thinking about for a long time. And he's the one that you can see on the right in the image there, next to Dr. Lawrence Lowe in Brampton. And so what he decided was that as he was thinking about trying to get a better model for the pandemic and trying to get faster vaccinations, he went back to this old idea that he'd had. And so he told me that on Christmas Eve this year, he put his 3-year-old daughter to bed and he lined up her stuffed animals. And he practiced going through and seeing if he could simulate getting consent and doing an injection within 30 seconds. And he was able to do that. And so that was the proof of concept that he took to his team when he said, hey, I think that this hockey hub model could work for us, and here's how I know it. Because we can do vaccines at this accelerated rate, and we can go person to person to person, 30 seconds each, and just move around like that. And we'll be able to get people shots a lot faster than we currently can in a traditional clinic.
I got to imagine that's the first time a medical lead has used children's toys to sort of get a strategy in getting mass vaccinations. That's very interesting. Now, you and I both live in Hamilton, and I'm going to talk about sort of my experience about getting my vaccine. My second shot was done at the First Ontario Centre. I lined up in one queue, sat down, got a ticket, went and got into another line, sat down until I got my shot. I thought it went fairly quickly. It seemed to be about 45 minutes all in all. How does this method, the Hockey Hub sort of model, differ from this model, and how is it actually beneficial?
Yeah, I actually asked Hamilton about theirs, and they said that they are happy with their current model. They're not planning to switch to Hockey Hub despite being aware of it. But what Dr. Era said, he gave me some figures. So one person can vaccinate up to 70 people per hour in this Hockey Hub model, as opposed to 6 to 10 people per hour in a traditional vaccination clinic, which means that about 5 people can do maybe 4,000, maybe more shots, depending on how many lines you have and how many people you've got going. You can actually scale this up and do even more. So for example, in Peel, they were able to do a test a couple weeks ago and get something like 5,700 shots administered in one day. It's also considerably less expensive. Part of this model relies on downloading some tasks from clinical professionals to volunteers. So you've got somebody who's giving the dose, but someone else is taking care of education and registration, and often they can be volunteers. So that means that with this model, it costs about $6,000 per 1,000 vaccines, as opposed to $26,000 per 1,000 vaccines. So what you're seeing now there is that's a picture of a Cayuga Clinic where they've set this up. So in Norfolk County, and you can see they've got 3 lines. And in Cayuga, they were able to go from doing 450 shots a day to doing 1,500 shots a day once they were able to set up that Hockey Hub.
Now, you mentioned Cayuga, which is just south of Hamilton. Are there any other places that this model is being used in Ontario?
So they've been able to use it a little bit in Sudbury, and then throughout Grey Bruce, they're using it in different locations. I'm not sure how many other people in Ontario are using it, because it could be the case that they're using it in some clinics, but not over, and I haven't been able to do a full survey of the province. But I know as far away as New Zealand, they were calling Dr. Era to ask him about it. Morden, Manitoba is one that he cited that he knows is using it. So it is a model that people are familiar with, and has caught on in several places. And
from what I understand, it's actually got the interest of people who are looking to get vaccines as well, traveling far and wide to come to these clinics as well?
Yes, well, that's also because they've been able to open up so many more. So Sarah Page, who's the EMS chief in Norfolk and the vaccine rollout lead for Haldeman Norfolk, what she told me was that because of the Hockey Hub and because of how many shots they've been able to administer, they were able to load a lot more appointments. So that meant that a couple weeks ago, when tons of people in Toronto were suddenly eligible for shots and couldn't get them in the city, they were seeing available appointments in Cayuga, and they were able to go there to get their shots.
Very interesting. Now, you had mentioned a little bit earlier that Hamilton has decided not to go with this model. Obviously we're in a push to get everyone vaccinated. Why aren't all regions sort of adopting this version?
So there could be a few different reasons. Niagara actually gave me a very fulsome response for why their health unit's not doing it. And what Dr. Hirji wrote to me was that part of the reason is that, number one, they're already well into their rollout. He said that with the stay-at-home order, they hadn't been able to actually go and observe this model in action. And at this point, it wouldn't really be worth changing it for them. But there could also be some philosophical reasons. So in Niagara, they don't actually like the idea that clinicians aren't doing some of the education and the documented consent. They say that if they were to use this model, and they still plan to study it more, but if they were to adopt it, they would want to change that, and they would want to have the clinician doing more of those activities.
My only tweak to this model is that after you wait your 15 minutes, I would hope that we can lace up some skates and actually go skating afterwards, but we can add that to the next model. Justin, this is some great stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The agenda this week caught up on plans to redevelop the iconic Ontario Place, assessed a tough year for K-12 education in the province, and heard from child welfare advocate Cindy Blackstock on why Canadians need to face this country's history with Indigenous residential schools. The Agenda's Week in Review begins touring the province ahead of a staycation summer.
Heather, going to follow up with you. How difficult is it to plan family trips where the kids can get some educational benefit out of it, but it doesn't feel pedagogical, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually think it's quite easy. We just have to do a little bit of extra legwork at the beginning, right? Researching your site and making sure that where you're going, you're actually asking the questions that will help set the stage for it to be a little different than usual. So look for those tours that are a little offbeat, right? Maybe not the typical historical tour, and see if you can get behind the scenes a little bit to get some alternate perspectives. But there's a ton of stuff out there for sure.
Okay, your favorite, I guess, place in the province of Ontario, well known for its history, that you like to go to? What is it?
Well, known, I would go with Kingston, as Raywat did, but I think the one that we need to know better is Chatham Kent. So Chatham Kent is actually best known as being the terminus of the Underground Railroad here in Canada, or one of them. And so there is a ton of history right there that talks about that and talks about Canada's role in maybe not being as good as it should have been at that time, and sort of not being the hero that it's sometimes painted as. The Buxton School, which is on the Buxton historical site you're looking at there, is actually a school that was all Black and formed because the local white parents didn't want their kids going to school with Black children. In the end, the school became, sorry, I've lost the word, but that brought everyone together because the white parents actually wanted their kids to go to the better school.
Isn't that interesting? And how far back does that school go?
I believe it's back to the 1800s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Terrific. Terrific. Okay. Chatham Kent, that's a great choice. Raywat, your pick for a place that's just oozing history in the province.
I have a strange choice. That's Ajax, Ontario. And the reason for that, it's not named after the character in Homer. It's named after the HMX Ajax, which is one of 3 ships involved in a battle in World War II against a Nazi ship called the Graf Spee, I think. And this was something called the Battle of the River Plate, the first naval battle of World War II. It was a big deal back then. It made all the news because it was the first naval battle. And the town is named after one of the ships of the battle. And the street names of that town are all people who were involved in that battle, including the captain of the German Nazi ship, Hans Langdorf. And I think for the longest time, it's the only city in the Western world with a street named after a Nazi, because supposedly he behaved himself quite honorably in accordance with the Hague Convention. I think, though, that there's a movement to rename that street, unless it's already been happening. But it's a touch of World War II history that we're not often aware of right here in the heart of Ontario.
That is fascinating. I didn't know that. And of course, Kitchener used to be Berlin, and the Berlin name did not survive, but apparently this street name did. That's kind of cool. Okay. Aaron, pick up the cudgel, if you would, and tell us your favorite historic place to go.
I have to go with my hometown, Ottawa. I think for Canadian history especially, we've got everything here. The last person to die of capital punishment in Canada is here, so you can take the haunted walk. Of course, this was the person who many say was wrongly convicted of assassinating Darcy McGee, a father of Confederation, and so his ghost haunts the Byward Market today. And if you do come down here, of course, you see the Parliament buildings and all of that, and Indigenous sites, but you definitely have to go to the Mackenzie King estate. Raywat mentioned the war, and we hear about how our Prime Minister at that time, Mackenzie King, they take you on a haunted walk there too, and it's just fabulous to learn about Canadian history, about a prime minister who during the war was using psychics and mediums to give him advice on what decisions to make, and they're very open about it, and also his relationship with his pets. He believed his dog, there were physically 2 dogs, but with one name, Pat, because the dog was reincarnated. And my favorite part was when, well, they have the ruins. Of course, they took Canadian ruins and put them on his estate. But my favorite part was when they told us that Mackenzie King, when he died, wanted to be buried with Pat, between Pat's 2 bodies, his dogs. And this actually went to Westminster because people here felt, well, he should be buried where he wants to be buried. But they also said it would be humiliating to Canada to have a prime minister buried with dogs, and so it actually went to Westminster, and it was ruled that he could not be buried with Pat.
Well, that explains why, because he's buried 20 minutes from this studio at Mount Pleasant Cemetery, and I go visit him all the time, actually, and it explains why his gravesite says, "Here lies William Lyon Mackenzie King, And there's no reference to Pat. I guess Pat didn't make the cut.
No, Pat's at the Mackenzie King Estate, and they actually have a cafe there called Cafe Pat, where you can go and pay your respects.
To Pat. That's
Pat.
great.
And there's
okay.
There's one tombstone and 2 dogs, of course, and it's just Pat singular.
The stuff we're learning tonight. This is terrific. Okay, David, let's just go back to a bit of the beginning of this. Why is the provincial government determined in the first place to redevelop Ontario Place?
Well, there's a bit of a mystery as to why all of a sudden Doug Ford had a real desire to redo it, although the park was essentially fallow and unused, so it makes sense they would at some point. But it was at the opening of the X a few years ago that a TV cameraman just sort of said to him, like, are you going to redevelop Ontario Place? And he said, yeah. And then at the announcement, all of a sudden he said, and we're going to redo Ontario Place. And then since then, there's been a big push with, as you mentioned, proposals coming from all over the world on how to redo it. I mean, we know that Doug Ford has an interest in the waterfront. When he was at the City of Toronto as a city councillor and right-hand man to his brother Rob, who was mayor, people will recall that he essentially tried to engineer a takeover of the city's waterfront plans and seize it from Waterfront Toronto, which is an agency that has city, provincial, and federal. That didn't fly. So I think we all expected at some point he would, want to put his stamp on Ontario Place, which is provincially owned property. But how he went about it, I think, was different than a lot of the people at the city expected.
Well, let's just remind everybody how we got here. We've got a half century of history to look back at. And let me just take a moment here to go through it, because it was, in fact, back on May 22nd, 1971, that Ontario Place opened to the public, followed by, you may remember this, the Children's Village the next year. John Robarts was the premier who wanted kids in Toronto to have a place to play in the summer, so he got Ontario Place started. Bill Davis was the premier who cut the ribbon on the place 50 years ago. In 1992, let's fast forward, it was redefined as a water amusement park. In 1994, its open-air theater, The Forum, boy, that place was great, but it was replaced by the Molson Amphitheater. In 2002, the Children's Village was demolished. In 2012, Ontario Place was shuttered by the then government of Premier Dalton McGuinty. In 2014, the province recognized Ontario Place as a heritage place. In 2019, the province abandoned its potential plan to put a casino on the grounds of Ontario Place. And last year, Ontario Place was added to the World Monuments Watch List. Okay, let's pick up the story there. Aziza, the World Monuments Watch List, what is that?
Well, it is, kind of a list that's been put together by an NGO based in New York and having arms of all over the world called the World Monuments Fund, and that decide of every year to name the most important buildings in the world that are at risk, so the heritage buildings. And Ontario Place has been named, in 2020 at the same time as Easter Island, for example, or the Cathedral of Notre Dame. So that speaks a lot of its importance as heritage on the world stage.
In your view, what makes Ontario Place worthy of being on that list?
Well, there are so many things, but one thing for sure, it's its unique combination of landscape, and so it's 3 artificial islands that were built on Lake Ontario that are interconnected by a series of different parks and also different bridges that connect a series of landmark buildings, including the famous City Sphere that hosted the first IMAX theater in the world, 5 floating pods, the Children's Village, the villages. So it's simply a stunning piece of what we call in the field of architecture, it's a mega structure. So it's a structure that attempts to integrate architecture, landscape, and infrastructure together. And there are very few of them in the world that were built on the water. So if Toronto holds one of these very few modern masterpieces, why would they want to tamper with it?
All right, one more follow-up, Aziza. If it enjoys heritage place protection, is it not safe?
It's not actually protected. It was indeed put on the list of heritage by the province in 2014, but very conveniently it was removed from that list right before the kind of the call for development. Now, if it is on the list of the World Monuments Fund, it has an international recognition, but this recognition, unfortunately, today does not seem to be understood by the province.
You got a guess about what percentage of the curriculum you just didn't get to this year?
I would say I probably had to put aside about a quarter of the curriculum, to be honest. I wanted to make sure that they learned well the content that they did. And because of that, I had to put aside a quarter, approximately, the content.
Jay, how does that compare to your experience?
I would have to agree. That's a pretty safe answer. A quarter would probably be left out. However, I would say I touched on as much as I could. I focused on student interest and student voice as much as possible. Also focused on much of what was happening in and around the world. And that, I think, drove my class, my teaching, and my connections to the curriculum this year.
All right, let's get some feedback from the two post-secondary people now. Prachi, you've heard what these two educators have to say. What's your initial reaction to what you've heard?
Well, I think firstly, teachers are the stars of this year. Thank you so much for your service. And I'm well aware of all of the issues, the issues that households have been facing, that students have been facing, that teachers have been facing. And all of this, in my mind, really comes down to insufficient planning. It comes down to insufficient planning from the provincial level. And given that many of us were warning, raising serious concerns, since I would say at least since last summer, but I had started working on this since last March. It's really somewhat inexcusable that we are here in Ontario in a high resource context, and we've suffered the longest school closures in Canada, and actually we've suffered the longest in North America and Europe if you look at the average globally. So that's quite shocking. I think our system, and in terms of systems planning, was just not firstly prepared, and secondly, when there were issues in terms of thinking about what we should be doing regarding the exigencies of this year, that just wasn't clear. And so we're in a situation where educators, school boards, schools did really the best they could within circumstances that were unprecedented. And if we look at other contexts, we're actually much worse than other contexts in the way that we dealt with education in this province.
All right, much to follow up on there, and we will. Kelly, let me get your initial reaction, first of all, though, to what you heard from our two educators.
Well, I think that they talked about some of the most important challenges that face teachers and the biggest reward and emotionally compelling part, which is the experience of students. It makes sense that teachers have had to adapt, and I agree with Prachi that the level of adaptation of the teaching workforce in Ontario is extraordinary, and many other places as well. So the capacity to have to throw out your existing engaged pedagogy, imagine for very young children, if you've run a play-based classroom with lots of stations, and all of a sudden you are delivering through sort of this direct two-way transmission, staring up at a screen full of cameras off, students trying to engage socially, knowing the importance of relationships, knowing the importance of in-depth engaged learning, more than just one specific chunk of knowledge. I think that's been tremendous. And then doing it in the context of constant turnarounds, a policy framework, particularly introducing this concept of parental choice that only happened in Alberta and Ontario, which segregated and resplit classes and caused us to have much more churn and disruption than other places. There have been numerous specific problems with the way in which education policy unrolled in Ontario this year. The classic line of Ontario education policy comes back from Mike Harris. John Snowblin, the then education minister, said, let's create a crisis in education. It wasn't good. And what we have here is a crisis from the outside and a government that either hasn't coped with it or has been trying to take advantage of it for ideological reasons.
The last residential school closed in 1996. So there are people around today who would have staffed those institutions. And they ought, to the degree possible, they ought to be held responsible. But what we also need to do is we need to find out, even for those perpetrators that have passed on, what did they do? And more importantly, what happened to the kids that they victimized? So that we can set a true telling of history so that we can learn from it and come closer to realizing the values of the country. And get rid of these chasms, because colonialism did two things. One is, of course, all these horrendous injustices and deaths of these children and that continue in some form today. And then on the other side was this complete erasure of history by the Canadian government to keep Canadians in the dark. Because the view was, if Canadians actually understood what was happening to these kids, they would be like Blake and they would be like Bryce, and they'd be outraged and they'd be speaking and demanding change. And the government did not want that to happen. So the non-Indigenous population was also victimized by this colonialism because it was robbed of its opportunity to do better.
I should ask you a bit of a strange question here, which is, are you a lawyer?
No, I'm a social worker, but as you know, Stephen, I've for 14 and a half years been litigating against Canada.
Well, that's why I asked.
Equitable services today.
That's why I asked.
I got a law degree to learn how to do that better. So yeah, I have a law degree, but I'm not a lawyer.
Okay, because I knew you're a PhD in social work, but of course, I and so many others always associate you with the work that you're doing in the courts. So let's go there. What are you working on now?
Well, what a lot of folks don't know is, remember those healthcare inequities that Dr. Bryce pointed to linking to the deaths? Well, they were never fixed. The federal government funds First Nations public services and does so at far lesser levels than everyone else. That's why we got things like no water on some First Nations reserves. And in 2000, when I was fresh on the national scene, I bounced on there and I thought, we're going to document these inequalities with the federal government. We're going to cost out solutions and we're going to show them how they're creating harms to these children, even to harms where they were driving them into foster care because families didn't have the help they needed to recover from the trauma of residential schools at greater numbers than the residential schools. So we did all that. And the government welcomed the report, said they'd review it, and then they did nothing. I got sucked in a second time and we did another report, same result. So in 2007, we filed a human rights complaint along with the Assembly of First Nations against Canada, alleging that what they were doing was racially discriminatory. Canada fought that case tooth and nail all the way. And then finally in 2016, we got the decision that substantiated the discrimination and ordered Canada to stop. The tribunal found that not only was Canada's discrimination pushing kids unnecessarily into foster care, it was resulting in serious harms and even the deaths of some children. Canada agreed with the decision, and then they did exactly what they did with those reports. They ignored it. So now, fast forward past the TRC, where equity and child welfare and something called Jordan's Principle, which is to ensure equitable public services are given to First Nations kids. Those are the top calls to action. Fast forward to now, we've had 19 non-compliance and procedural orders against the feds. And just last couple of weeks ago, we were in federal court where they were trying to overturn some of the tribunal's orders to get them closer to justice. So the feds continue to fight tooth and nail against this generation of kids.
I'd be very interested in your theory as to why you think that's happening, given that the current Prime Minister says reconciliation with Indigenous communities is his top agenda.
Yeah, I don't get it. And I also didn't get it, The week before we were in the federal court hearings, the Prime Minister was on the floor of Parliament saying he was not fighting Indigenous children in court. And I was thinking, well, then why are we going to court next week? And the public can just tune in and watch this. It's almost like they're in an alternate kind of QAnon reality sometimes. What gives me some hope is that the Canadian public seems to be far out in front of the federal government on this one. Like, the federal government is really still operating from a deeply colonial place. In fact, Stephen, we don't have to look far to look at that. We can look at the contemporary inequalities and the non-compliance with the law, but we can also look at that racist Indian Act that was used to push kids into residential schools. It's still on the books, despite there being a plan to get rid of it, released in 1996. So I think it's that colonialism that just pervades their minds. They just can't reconcile the fact that they themselves are doing the injustice. They'd rather look at it in the past so that they don't have to really do anything other than apologize and send hopes and prayers.
That's just some of what we covered this week on The Agenda. For more, including the full conversations, you can visit our website, tvo.org, our YouTube channel at youtube.com/theagenda, or our Twitter feed, twitter.com/theagenda. And that's it for this Friday, July 2nd, 2021, and for the regular portion of The Agenda's 15th season. Next week, we kick off our summer series. After this difficult year, we wanted to gather some of the most memorable, remarkable, and lasting conversations we've heard here on The Agenda and update them as we all hopefully look forward to better days. We recall wisdom from Salman Rushdie, resilience from an Ontario nurse who survived a shark attack, and reconsider the insight and knowledge of Justice Murray Sinclair, just to name a few. And in August, we'll be looking back on some of the biggest Ontario stories we've covered and how they're playing out today. I'm Nam Kiwanuka. Thank you for watching TVO and for joining us online at tvo.org. Have a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday for the start of this season's agenda in the summer. See you then.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism. Ontario Hubs are made possible by the Barry and Laurie Green Family Charitable Trust and Goldie Feldman.
The Agenda is always on. To catch up on conversations from this week or any week, visit our website, tvo.org/theagenda, or our YouTube page at youtube.com/theagenda. It's all there for whenever you want to watch.